Daisy's plan. Up in the marshlands, where the snow still lay thick upon the ground, the Ickabog was no longer pushing the boulder in front of the cave mouth when it went out with its baskets. Instead, Daisy, Bert, Martha and Roderick were helping it collect the little marsh mushrooms it liked to eat, and during these outings they also prized more frozen food from the abandoned wagon, which they took back to the cave for themselves. Hello, Six. You are not very much help. Go and sit and play with the fish. There you go. All 4 humans were growing stronger and healthier by the day. The Ickabog too was growing fatter and fatter, but this was because its bonding time was drawing ever closer. As the bonding was when the Ickabog said it intended on eating the 4 humans, Bert, Martha and Roderick weren't very happy about the Ickabog's growing belly. Bert in particular was certain that Ickabog meant to kill them. He now believed he'd been wrong about his father having an accident. The Ickabog was real, so clearly the Ickabog had killed Major Beamish. Often on their mushroom trips, the Ickabog and Daisy would draw a little ahead of the others, having their own private conversation. "What do you think they're talking about?" Martha whispered to the 2 boys as they searched the bog for the small white mushrooms that Ickabog particularly liked. "I think she's trying to make friends with it," said Bert. "What, so it'll eat us instead of her?" said Roderick. "That's a horrible thing to say," said Martha sharply. "Daisy looked after everyone at the orphanage. Sometimes she took punishments for other people too." Roderick was taken aback. He'd been taught by his father to expect the worst of everybody he met, and that the one way to get on in life was to be the biggest, the strongest, and the meanest in every group. It was hard to lose the habits he'd been taught, but with his father dead and his mother and brothers doubtless in prison, Roderick didn't want these 3 new friends to dislike him. "Sorry," he muttered, and Martha smiled at him. Now, as it happens, Bert was quite right. Daisy was making friends with the Ickabog, but her plan wasn't only to save herself, or even her 3 friends. It was to save the whole of Cornucopia. As she and the monster walked through the bog on this particular morning, drawing ahead of the others, she noticed that a few snowdrops had managed to force their way up through a patch of melting ice. Spring was coming, which meant the soldiers would soon be returning to the edge of the marsh. With a funny seasick feeling in her stomach, because she knew how important it was that she got this right, Daisy said, "Ickabog, you know the song you sing every night?" The Ickabog, who was lifting a log to see whether there were any mushrooms hiding beneath it, said, "If I didn't know it, I couldn't sing it, could I?" It gave a wheezy little chuckle. "Well, you know the song you sing that you want your children to be kind and wise and brave?" "Yes," agreed the Ickabog, and it picked up a small silvery grey mushroom and showed it to Daisy. "That's a good one. You don't get many silver ones on the marsh." "Lovely," said Daisy, as the Ickabog popped the mushroom into its basket. "And then, in the last chorus of your song, you say you hope your babies will kill people," said Daisy. "Yes," said the Ickabog again, reaching up to pull a small bit of yellow fungus off a dead tree and showing it to Daisy. "This is poisonous. Never eat this kind." "I won't," said Daisy, and drawing a deep breath, she said, "But do you really think a kind, wise, brave Ickabog would eat people?" The Ickabog stopped in the act of bending to pick up another silvery mushroom and peered down at Daisy. "I don't want to eat you," it said, "but I have to, or my children will die." "You said they need hope," said Daisy. "What if, when the boarding time comes, they saw their mother, or their father, I'm sorry, I don't quite know." "I will be their Icka," said the Ickabog, "and they'll be my Ickleboggles." "Well then, wouldn't it be wonderful if your Ickaboggles saw their Icka surrounded by people who loved it and wanted it to be happy, and to live with them as friends? Wouldn't that fill them with more hope than anything else could do?" The Ickabog sat down on a fallen tree trunk, and for a long time it said nothing at all. Bert, Martha and Roderick stood watching from the distance. They could tell something very important was happening between Daisy and the Ickabog, and although they were extremely curious, they didn't dare approach. At last the Ickabog said, Perhaps it would be better if I didn't eat you, Daisy." This was the first time the Ickabog had called her by her name, and Daisy reached out and placed her hand on the Ickabog's paw, and for a moment the two smiled at each other. Then the Ickabog said, "When my bonding comes, you and your friends must surround me, and my Ickaboggles will be bonded knowing you're their friends too. and that you, after that, you must stay with my Ickaboggles here on the marsh forever. Well, the problem with that is, said Daisy cautiously, still holding the Ickabog's paw, that the food on the wagon will run out soon. I don't think there are enough mushrooms here to support the 4 of us and your Ickaboggles too. Daisy found it strange to be talking like this about a time when the Ickabog wouldn't be alive, but the Ickabog didn't seem to mind. Then what can we do? It asked her, its big eyes anxious. Ickabog, said Daisy cautiously, people are dying all over Cornucopia. They're starving to death and even being murdered, all because some evil men made everyone believe you wanted to kill people. I did want to kill people until I met you 4, said the Ickabog. But now you've changed, said Daisy. She got to her feet and faced the Ickabog, holding both of its paws. Now you understand that people, well, most people anyway, aren't cruel or wicked. They're mostly sad and tired, Ickabog. And if they knew you, knew how kind you are, how gentle, how all you eat is mushrooms, they'd understand how stupid it is to fear you. I'm sure they'd want you and your Ickaboggles to leave the marsh and go back to the meadows where your ancestors lived, where there are bigger, better mushrooms for you and your descendants to live with us as our friends. You want me to leave the marsh, said the Ickabog, to go among men with their guns and their spears? Ickabog, please listen, begged Daisy. If your Ickaboggles are bonded, surrounded by hundreds of people, all wanting to love and protect them, wouldn't that feed them with more hope than any Ickaboggle ever had in history? Whereas if the 4 of us stay here in the marsh and starve to death, what hope will remain for your Ickaboggles? The monster stared at Daisy, and Bert, Martha and Roderick watched, wondering what on earth was happening. At last a huge tear welled in the Ickabog's eye, like a glass apple. I'm afraid to go among the men. I'm afraid they will kill me and my Ickaboggles. They won't, said Daisy, letting go of the Ickabog's paw and placing her hands instead on either side of the Ickabog's huge hairy face, so her fingers were buried in its long, marshy, weedy hair. I swear to you, Ickabog, we'll protect you. Your bonding will be the most important in history. We're going to bring Ickabogs back, and Cornucopia too. Well, that's awfully exciting. So, let me just find the next chapter, because I'm not entirely sure why it's only saying there's one chapter. So have a look on, not chapter 20, have a look on Purple Mash, and I will find the next chapters, but it seems very strange that there's only been one. Oh, we're up to date. So have a look on Purple Mash, and we will see what happens next in the Ickabog, hopefully tomorrow when there's another chapter. See you soon.